About a week ago, I shared some of the new Subaru hybrid technology coming down the hatch in some markets earlier than others. For example, Japan gets it before the end of the year is over into the Crosstrek. And we got details on the Crosstrek hybrid in terms of efficiency, motor output, all those juicy details that I really like to sink my teeth into. I made a spreadsheet as well where we're going to break down these hybrid numbers, and maybe we should compare them to Toyota's hybrid as well. Even though this is taking some of Toyota's technology and applying it with a splash of Subaru flavor, we need to compare hybrids to hybrids. So we're going to go ahead and do that today as well. If you guys are excited for Subaru finally getting on track, I guess you could say, with hybrids, make sure to smash that like button and let's get into it. And speaking of hybrids, on November 12th, 8 a.m. Eastern time, I'll be able to share my driving impressions on another Toyota-based hybrid, the Mazda CX-50, which is literally using Toyota's hybrid from the RAV4, putting in the CX-50 in a shell of a Mazda. I can't talk about driving impressions until the 12th, so if you guys want to know more about fuel economy as well as driving impressions on a Mazda CX-50 with the Toyota's hybrid powertrain in there, make sure you are subscribed. So let's get into this. This is different very much than what Mazda is doing, even though they're collaborating with Toyota on this hybrid technology. And release in Japan is December 2024. And it is starting out on the Crosstrek. Now, it is using a newly developed 2.5-liter horizontally opposed engine and transaxle. So apparently we have a brand new engine developed specifically for hybrids, which is no surprise. I mean, Toyota has different variations of their own engines, whether they're going to be in hybrids or not. Honda's got to the point where if you look at the new Civic, for example, they killed off the old 2-liter engine and they put in the new 2-liter engine, which is shared with their hybrid. So Honda's kind of just blanketed the Civic at this point anyways with the same engine, regardless of whether it has a hybrid technology hooked onto it or not, interestingly. But Subaru kind of doing the Toyota route, putting their own spin on a hybrid engine based off of a currently employed engine with a 2.5-liter boxer. So it's adopting a series parallel system. I mean, Toyota uses specifically a series parallel system, which efficiently uses either the engine or motor as the power source depending on the situation. The engine's generous dynamic performance and smooth acceleration further enhance driving enjoyment. Subaru Symmetrical all-wheel drive, again, it's going to be standard here, and we'll talk about how that it's a benefit and sort of a con at the same time, but definitely a benefit over Toyota's all-wheel drive. But this is going to be delivering a reliable driving and better off-road performance thanks to precise control of mechanically coupled front and rear wheels through the propeller shaft. So we have a larger fuel tank. Now, keep in mind, they're comparing the fuel tank to what's available in Japan. When I ran the numbers of the fuel tank size, it's the same fuel tank we already have on the Crosstrek here in the States, which is a little over 16 gallons. But they're saying we have a 20% improvement in fuel consumption over the current hybrid system. And you can get a cruising range of over 1,000 kilometers on a single tank. Well, we'll talk about what this efficiency actually means theoretically in EPA. Again, we have to wait for the official EPA numbers, but I'm going to crunch some numbers, convert liters per 100 kilometers to miles per gallon to do the best that we can in this situation, because we don't get the current hybrid system. What is the current hybrid system? Well, it's called e-Boxer, and it's a mild hybrid. It was never brought to America. It's seen in Europe, seen in Japan, other places, but it wasn't brought to North America. We have a beautiful diagram of the hybrid system. It's pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. You have the Boxer engine. On top of that, you have the power control unit. You have the motor generator, so it has two motors here. A motor generator to start the engine, also largely used for regen. And then I believe how it works is that inside the motor generator, next to the motor generator, is going to be your transaxle. So it is going to be a eCVT. It'll behave, guys, I'm telling you, it's going to behave so similar to a Toyota hybrid, except you're going to have the character of Subaru in here. So the engine is sitting low in the vehicle, so you have a low center of gravity. You have dynamic, symmetrical, all-wheel drive and all physical all-wheel drive. So you're going to be able to send the power to each wheel independently and accurately. Toyota has an e-axle on the back, so there's no mechanical linkage. Honda, if you look at Honda's all-wheel drive hybrids, well, they have a heavy mechanical linkage. It really drives down fuel economy compared to the front-wheel drive models, maybe about 2 to 3 miles per gallon, if I remember correctly. Sometimes it could be worse depending on the conditions. But I'm going to go ahead and say that Subaru is going to do a really good job here, because if you look at Subaru setups right now, they're really fuel efficient despite being full-time all-wheel drive. So I think Subaru is going to pull some really impressive fuel economy numbers here, despite it being all-wheel drive on every model that it is going to be employed on. So we also have a 1.1 kilowatt hour lithium-ion battery. The fuel tank here, a little over 16 gallons, and it is a 2.5 liter. It's not the 2 liter. They wanted to make sure that it has enough power for the United States market. You got to remember, Subaru, I think it's like somewhere around 60-70% of Subaru's global sales are from the United States. And maybe after this, we can get into some of the nerdy timelines that they have for electrification. If you guys care to stick around for that, I would appreciate that after we go over the spreadsheet. All right, so here we go. Here's more information on the transaxle. So it's newly developed for the next generation hybrid system. We have 2 powerful motors, a traction motor and a motor generator, a front differential gear, and an electronically controlled coupling are integrated into a single package. The traction motor, which generates a maximum of 88 kilowatts, can serve as a vehicle's main source of power in a wide range of situations, with the engine covering areas where the motor is not well suited. We have a small graph here of the specific details, but let's put it in a spreadsheet and compare it to what else we have in the Subaru lineup, as well as compared to other hybrids that come from Japan. All right, that will be direct competitors, right? Toyota has tons of different hybrids. Honda just has one hybrid. Well, there is a plug-in hybrid variant of it. In other markets, of course, we don't get it stateside. All right, and let's compare it to what Subaru currently has on the market. And I'm not putting the BRZ's engine in here. It's an outlier, okay? The volume for Subaru comes from the 2.5 liter especially, but in the Crosstrek and the Impreza, we have the 2 liter. So this new 2.5 liter is kind of putting out the 2 liter vibes, or should I say the 2 liter numbers, but it's going to be more efficient. So this engine is really focused on efficiency, because at times it's going to need to act as a generator to power up that battery. So it's just completely tuned different compared to these engine options. So what we need to compare to is the total combined output. The 2 motor generators, or you say 1 traction motor and then 1 motor generator, so it's got 2 motors, but regardless, we have about 118 horsepower coming from the traction motor and around 200 pound-feet of torque. That's going to be awesome to have in Subaru's all-wheel drive system. And when you combine it with the engine, and you're going to have, with Toyota systems, you have about a 25% loss in peak power when you combine the electric motors and the gasoline engine. So what I'm seeing here is about 200, a little over 200 horsepower is what I'm expecting from this setup. My gut tells me in terms of straight line acceleration, it's going to be similar to this. You might be saying, Kirk, how? Because it has more power, it has way more torque. You got to keep in mind these electric motors, as well as the battery, as well as the electronics here, it adds weight to the system. So this, while it's going to have way more torque and a little bit more power than this, you're going to see the benefits obviously in driving dynamics, but in terms of straight line acceleration, it might not be there, but you're going to get better fuel economy. So what is that better fuel economy? Well, again, it's going to have to depend on what the EPA rates it at. But they're saying it's 20% better than the current e-Boxer. And I ran some numbers. The e-Boxer gets around 36 miles per gallon when you convert it. I'm going to say this is best case scenario, honestly, because again, I don't have an EPA number for the e-Boxer because it doesn't exist on our market. So I converted it straight from the European cycle, which is a little bit favorable for cities. So with this number we're looking at today, think of it as, hey, this is the sort of mileage you're probably going to see in town, not necessarily on the highway. It's not going to do as well on the highway. All right. So with that being said, we're going to take 36 plus 20%, which is about 7 miles per gallon. In theory, in town, we're getting about 43 miles per gallon, which is a nice step up compared to the combined fuel economy here. Now, these are combined numbers. The in-town fuel economy is worse than what you're seeing here. It's probably upper 20s for these models and lower 20s, obviously, for the turbo engine. So what kind of range are we looking at? Well, it's not going to be as good as this, but this is going to be a rough number. 43 miles per gallon times 16.6 is 713 miles of range, but that's not going to be highway range. I'm going to say highway range is going to be closer to 600 miles. And then city range is going to be 700 or so miles, which is pretty good. So I'm going to put, let's just meet in the middle. Let's say 650 miles of range. That sounds too good to be true, but the tank size is enormous. That's a huge benefit here to this Subaru. I mean, they're saying over 1,000 kilometers. If you convert that straight to, I mean, it's 0.62, right? It's over 600 miles of range. All right. So we're not too far off here, but I think that's a little bit favorable, leaning more towards the city end. So we're going to have over 200 horsepower in theory. Again, wait for official numbers. We do have official numbers. Here's the thing. Subaru gives us official numbers on the motor and the engine, but they don't give us a combined power. I am extrapolating from other Toyota technology, and this hybrid system is Toyota hybrid technology. They've worked with Toyota to develop this. So how does it shake out? I mean, obviously it looks like a straight winner compared to the non-hybridized powertrains. How does it compare to Toyota and Honda hybrids? Well, it's going to have strengths and weaknesses. There's no perfect hybrid system out there. I mean, as long as it's reliable and it gives a good enough power for everyday usage and gives you good fuel economy, that's what hybrids are for. Subaru's hybrid, these are all eCVTs. There's not going to be any sort of gears. Sometimes Honda puts fake gearing in, but it is what it is. A combined 207 horsepower, which is down compared to Toyota. And it's close to where Honda is, maybe a little bit better. All right. But again, wait till final numbers. But at least it seems to be competitive, especially with Honda's 2-liter hybrid setup. Where will Subaru shine? Well, it could be fuel economy. We don't have official numbers, but it's going to be competitive. That's what I can say. Subaru's fuel economy here, despite it being full-time all-wheel drive, will be competitive against the competition. It's going to be definitely slower than Honda's mainly electric driven hybrid and Toyota's split hybrid or power split device that we have. All right. So it's going to be a hair slower, maybe a second slower than Honda's hybrid and just a hair slower than Toyota's hybrid. And it's going to suffer in fuel economy, I would say, compared to Toyota's hybrids on average. However, what's the gain here? What are we getting here? Well, it's going to be more fun to drive. Like I said, the center of gravity is going to be lower. The torque vectoring here is going to be unmatched with Honda and Toyota's hybrids. And the amount of torque and power can send to the rear wheels is going to be better than what Honda can do, probably just by a little bit, because remember, Honda still has a physical drive shaft, but Toyota has an e-axle, which shaves off weight. It makes it simpler. You would have less maintenance because you don't have a rear differential. You don't have a propeller shaft. It's like a simpler system, but it's not going to provide anywhere close Toyota's systems to the same off-roading prowess and all-wheel drive and torque distribution that Subaru's hybrids will do. I'm excited for this system. I'm excited to drive it, to test it. It's going to give us a nice boost in fuel economy, a much-needed boost in power because Subarus are notoriously underpowered. The Outback Turbo is great. I mean, it has lots of power, and I don't like how the CVT and the turbo behaves when you have a light foot. It's just, it's a bit wishy-washy. Anyways, watch my review on the Subaru Outback Turbo. So with this being said, when can we expect this? Well, we're going to get it first in the Forester. Just don't know exactly when. I'm hearing it could be 2026 now, even though it's coming out in a month or so in Japan on the Crosstrek. And yes, the Forester will use the exact same hybrid powertrain. So I would say by the end of 2026, it's going to be on the Forester stateside. It's supposed to be built here, to my understanding. So maybe it's going to take Subaru some time to get their hybrid supply chain in order to make sure that they can build it here stateside. So it could be 2026, by the end of 2026. So unfortunately, I'm waiting too long. Meanwhile, Mazda's doesn't have their own hybrids yet. I mean, you could say the CX-50, but the CX-50 really is just a stopgap using Toyota's tech until Mazda comes out with their own hybrid tech. Probably also using Toyota's expertise to some degree. It'll be interesting. So let's get into a little bit of Subaru's electrification plans. I don't think I ever covered this. This came out in May 2024. So we're just a few months at this point removed from this, but it is fun to talk about. Subaru's electrification sales target by 2030 is 50% BEV. Previously, it was just 40% combined BEV and HEV. So by 2030, they want to have half of their sales volume be EVs. And remember, the majority of their sales comes in the United States. So it'll be fascinating to see Subaru transform into a potentially majority BEV company by the end of the decade. I don't think it's going to happen. Look how much they changed from their previous sales targets here to the new sales targets. Look at the huge shift towards BEV. I think it's going to shift back. The other 50% here is going to be hybrids, but I think it could be larger than 50% by 2030. I'll see you guys in the comments down below. Do you think Subaru is going to be 50% BEV by 2030? I don't understand how they could do that. So I really nerd out on this stuff looking at production. I was speculating on when this hybrid system is going to be here. It looks like it's going to be by the end of 2025 because next-gen HEV production starting by the end of 2024 in Japan, and then the same bubble down here a year later. So the end of 2025, we'll have it on the Forester being built in North America. Now, if you look here, 2027 timeframe, we have BEV starting production in the United States, which you got to keep in mind, it could happen in 2026 still. That's out of Toyota's camp. That's a three-row crossover coming out of Toyota's Kentucky plant, which is coming in 2026, which was 2025, but it's been delayed. This, to me, these production numbers is telling me this is Subaru production, not Toyota production of their own cars, right? Because we know that the BZ4X has been in circulation, what was it, since 2022? And that bubble's not on here. So that tells me this does not include their rebadging of Toyota BEVs. All right, so we have to look at this as Subaru specific BEV hybrid development here. It's starting in 2025 with a new BEV in Japan. Don't be surprised if it's, again, a joint venture with Toyota, but it could be produced at the Gunma plant or the Gunma plant, and Toyota could be rebadging a Subaru this time. That's a possibility. Now we look at 2027, we have new BEV production lines coming online in Japan, and our first BEV production line coming online in Indiana. All right, so we're looking at the two production lines for Subaru in Japan for BEVs producing 400,000 BEVs per year. It's hard to say what they will be down here, but it's probably another 200,000. So we're looking at 600,000 BEVs from Subaru. It's just hard to imagine by 2030, but it looks like that's where they want to be. Production capacity for transitional period is 1.2 million plus units per year between Japan and the United States. In the meantime, we're just eagerly awaiting their hybrids. Will Subaru do plug-in hybrids? I have no idea. They've shown that they've done it before. If you look at the Crosstrek plug-in hybrid, that only existed for a few years and it only existed for carb states. It was just really limited, didn't have a lot of power, had a really small battery pack, so you only had like 17 miles of EV range, something like that. That vehicle, I think, is a precursor to what we'll see with next-gen technology, newer battery technology, et cetera. That could be happening in the second half of this decade. In the meantime, we just need this hybrid that I detailed today. We need it to come to the United States. Subaru would be licking their chops. I know they're losing customers to an extent to Tesla. I think they're losing customers also to Toyota, Honda, and the Koreans that have proven hybrid technology, and Subaru is just sitting there with the Solterra losing money on that, I'm sure, and it is what it is. So I'll see you guys in the comments. I'm excited for Subaru. Again, I can't be too excited because we're still a year out from that production coming stateside on the Forester, but at least we know what we're getting. These numbers are pretty accurate, especially the outputs of the engine and the motors. We know that to be gospel. The EPA fuel economy is going to be interesting. All right. Is it going to be around 40? I think it should be. It should be pretty close to that. If it's lower than that, I think people will be disappointed, but time will tell. Thank you guys. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.